In the 316 days since this report was issued, we are finally here engaging in this conversation. And it's important because we have to get to the root of the problems and understand and establish exactly what we're trying to fix before we go out and authorize changes to a system that we're unclear about who's on first and who's directing the work that is being done.
That one sentence explains the entire story. Los Angeles officials were supposed to analyze how the city could begin moving hundreds of millions of dollars away from LAHSA. The Housing and Homelessness Committee recommended that an outside consultant complete that analysis by July 1st. But July 1st came and July 1st went. And according to city records, according to officials, the work never even started. Never even started. The full city council did not approve the analysis. It did not approve the roughly $450,000 needed to hire the consultant. And the most recent committee recommendation pushed the possible completion date as far back as December of 2027. Now, to be accurate, that date is not final. A council spokesperson says it will probably be moved forward and the full council still has to approve it. But the central fact does not change. The original deadline passed and Los Angeles has still not started the analysis. Before we go any further, like this video, subscribe to Kage Los Angeles, and share with someone who keeps asking, where is all that homeless money? Where is it going? Because Los Angeles never seems to have trouble approving money. It only has trouble establishing accountability for what happens afterwards.
All as a result of a damning audit that was released saying that the Homeless Authority for LA County essentially can't track tens of millions of dollars in funding for homeless services. As you said, just behind me, this is a converted motel. It's temporary housing right now. It's run by a nonprofit that receives a lot of that money. And again, the question is, where is all of that money going?
Now, that clip came from an earlier audit cycle, so Los Angeles cannot claim that these concerns suddenly appeared yesterday. There have been years of warnings about tracking, warnings about oversight, payments, data, and financial controls. And yet, the newly approved Los Angeles city budget still includes approximately $358 million flowing through LAHSA over the next 12 months. That's about 5% more than the $309 million included during the previous fiscal year. 12 of the 15 city council members approved that budget. Council member Nithya Raman defended her vote by saying that Los Angeles does not yet have another system capable of managing all the existing contracts. But that explanation exposes the larger failure. After years of warnings, Los Angeles still did not have a credible replacement ready. So taxpayers are being told that the current structure may be deeply troubled. Okay, but because government failed to prepare an alternative, the public must keep funding it anyway. That is not a transition plan. That is the institutional dependency.
One of the challenges, we're talking about governance overall here in the city. We have very limited staff across the city to work on homelessness issues and homelessness policy overall. And we have not hired a single person for the Bureau yet, so we have no additional policy expertise that we've added to the city. We have no extra capacity that we've added to the city. And our existing staff is largely trying to meet our current obligations under an increasingly fragmented environment. We need more capacity to be able to manage this work at the city and to make sure that every dollar is working well. We just do. We're not staffed to be able to handle that.
Now, that statement was made in March. Los Angeles had created a Bureau of Homelessness oversight to build the city's internal capacity and improve accountability. But approximately 9 months after the positions were funded, the Bureau had not hired a single person. Now, there has been some progress since then. As of June, 3 of the Bureau's 10 positions have reportedly been filed. So it would no longer be accurate to say that the office has no employees. But 7 of the 10 positions are still unfilled. And this creates an incredible circle of government logic. The city says it cannot move away from LAHSA because it lacks internal capacity to manage the contracts. But the office created to build that capacity was still mostly understaffed or unstaffed. First, government creates a new office to correct the old system. Then it struggles to staff the new office. Then it argues that the old system must continue because the new office is not ready. And throughout that entire process, the spending of our money continues. At some point, accountability has to become more than another department name, don't you think?
It was called a divorce between the county and the city of Los Angeles over the issue of homelessness.
We're recommending a change that I believe is long overdue.
The LA County Board of Supervisors voting today to effectively pull out of LAHSA, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority.
LA County and City's Chief Homeless Rehousing Administrator.
A massive agency that received tax revenue from the city and county to administer the effort to end homelessness. But recent audits indicated a lack of transparency or of financial accounting of services provided. As a result, the county board voted 4-0 to set up its own homeless services department, which supervisors Lindsay Horvath and Catherine Barger said would receive better oversight, efficiency, and results.
The status quo is not serving anyone.
Los Angeles County reached a different conclusion. In April of 2025, county supervisors voted 4-0 to create their own homelessness department and move more than $300 million in annual county funding away from LAHSA. The county then spent more than a year preparing the transition. And on July 1st of this year, the new Department of Homeless Services and Housing, they began directly managing hundreds of contracts and work orders that previously passed through several agencies, including LAHSA. Those programs include more than 6,500 interim housing beds, more than 2,800 temporary rental subsidies, and case management services for tens of thousands of people in permanent supportive housing. That does not automatically prove the county's new system will succeed. It still has to show results, transparency, and timely payments. But it does prove that an alternate system can be planned, staffed, and launched by a deadline. The county made a decision and built a replacement. The city, on the other hand, missed the deadline to begin studying what the replacement might eventually look like. That difference is the story.
Good evening. I'm Rutabaga Shabazi.
And I'm Pat Harvey. Thank you for joining us. Now, LA's embattled Homeless Services Authority is under fire once again. The Trump administration says it's suspending hundreds of millions of dollars in funding over accusations of waste and fraud.
CBS LA political reporter Tom Waite is here to explain what this could mean in the battle to contain the homelessness crisis.
And there's a lot of concerns about where this could be the impact the most, right? So we try to get some answers on that tonight. And also, it's a big election issue. Mayor Bass has touted that homelessness has gone down over 2 years.
Right.
So we'll see how this impacts that as well. Yeah, so the homeless crisis is a critical issue in this year's LA mayoral election. Mayor Bass in a statement saying that she too has concerns about LAHSA, but also says withholding funds jeopardizes progress. LA's homeless crisis could get even worse. The Trump administration announced it's cutting off funding for LAHSA, LA's Homeless Services Authority, which took in $1 billion in federal aid over the last 5 years.
Then the federal government entered the picture. On June 11th, the Department of Housing and Urban Development announced that it was suspending LAHSA's access to federal funding. HUD accused the agency of repeated false certifications, inadequate financial controls, missing conflict of interest safeguards, and failing to provide documentation verifying nearly 2,300,000 housing sites. Those are some serious allegations, but they remain government allegations, not final criminal convictions or even court findings. LAHSA disputes HUD's characterization and says it is corrected or is correcting nearly all of the problems identified. The agency then sued the federal government. And here is the important update. A federal judge ordered HUD and LAHSA to submit a proposed agreement by July 16 that would maintain the status quo for existing services. The judge scheduled another hearing for August 6 to decide whether to formally block the funding suspension while the lawsuit proceeds. So it would now be misleading to simply say that all federal funding money is gone. HUD announced a suspension, LAHSA challenged it, and the court is trying to prevent currently funded housing and services from being suddenly interrupted. We, the taxpayers, deserve an honest investigation. But here's the thing, the folks receiving housing assistance, those folks should not become collateral damage while government agencies fight each other in court. A competent system should be capable of protecting vulnerable people and protecting public money at the same time.
Nick Gerda from the LAS joins us now this morning. Thank you so much for being with us, Nick.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I want to dive in here. The audit actually said they found a, quote, significant deficiency in LAHSA's internal controls, that's the quote, which are supposed to safeguard against financial inaccuracies and fraud. Can you go into more detail about the findings for us?
Exactly, and there's actually been a number of problems that were found in this audit, which itself is late, overdue from the federal deadline, which can put their funding at risk at LAHSA. But in terms of this finding, we caught it late last Friday night when the document posted and broke the story yesterday that basically these auditors have found that LAHSA failed to have appropriate safeguards in place to ensure that its financial statements are accurate, and that ultimately very late in the audit process, they caught that there was significant misstatements of the money flows at LAHSA, the LA Homeless Services Authority.
And this is not only a story about money being approved, it's also a story about money not being used when it was supposed to be used. A recent audit found that LAHSA underspent its overall budget by approximately $108 million during the fiscal year that ended in June of 2025. The year before that, the underspending was nearly $150 million. Now, some of that money was carried forward, and the latest audit attributed much of the underspending to program delays. So underspending does not automatically mean that the money was stolen or permanently lost. But money sitting unspent does not become outreach. It doesn't become treatment. It doesn't become shelter, and it does not become permanent housing on schedule. The audit also found that LAHSA's original financial statements contained significant inaccurate amounts that had to be corrected late in the audit process. Auditors connected that problem to a significant deficiency in internal financial controls. So Los Angeles is confronting both sides of the same contradiction. Officials continue approving enormous budgets, but the system has struggled to accurately document, manage, and deploy the money already entrusted to it. A massive budget is not a result. The result is what actually changes after the check clears.
We need to move to publicly owned land.
Right now, we have Inside Safe having a lot of people who are in there for a year or more. That's like having someone in an emergency room for a year.
This is no longer just an agency management story. It is now part of the race for mayor. Karen Bass has served on LAHSA's 10-member governing commission since appointing herself to it in the fall of 2023. Half of that commission is appointed by the mayor. Half of that commission. The other half is appointed by 5 county supervisors. Bass's office says she has grave concerns about LAHSA. She has zero tolerance for mismanagement and previously directed city departments to develop options for moving away from the agency. But she also warned that moving too quickly without a serious transition plan could interrupt services and create even more bureaucracy. Nithya Raman chairs the City Council's Housing and Homelessness Committee. She has pushed for the city to build its own management capacity and says preparing for the next step is urgent. But she also voted for the budget that continues approximately $358 million through LAHSA. Both officials can offer legitimate explanations. Both can point to a complicated regional structure, and both can argue that services cannot simply be switched off overnight. But both are asking voters to trust them with the future of Los Angeles, so voters have every right to ask, what did you personally build? What deadline did you meet? Who was responsible when that deadline was missed? And if this system is too broken to defend, why was the replacement not ready to go years ago? Leadership is not merely recognizing that a system has failed. Leadership is having something better ready before the next crisis arrives. So here's the thing. Los Angeles is constantly presented with a false choice. We are told we must either continue funding a troubled structure without demanding answers, or immediately cut off everything and endanger people who rely on housing and services. Those cannot be the only choices. Los Angeles can protect vulnerable people while demanding accurate financial records. It can pay legitimate service providers on time while refusing to tolerate weak oversight. It can continue housing people while creating a system taxpayers can actually follow. But none of that happens through endless delays. The city has already created committees. It has already commissioned reports. It has already produced audits. It has already established new offices, and it has already spent billions of dollars. What Los Angeles lacks is not another conversation. It lacks enforceable consequences. It lacks clear responsibility. Tell me what you think in the comments. Should Los Angeles continue using LAHSA until its own replacement is fully operational? Should it transfer more responsibility to the county? Or should the city build and directly manage its own homelessness department? Like this video, subscribe to Kage Los Angeles, and share with another Angelino. Because when the government spends hundreds of millions of dollars in our name, asking where the money went and what it accomplished should never be considered unreasonable.